Let me tell you something that might flip your entire world upside down. Stop telling people what you do. Your vision wasn't meant for their understanding. That fire burning in your gut, that pull in your chest at 3 a.m., that whisper telling you to go after something bigger than yourself, it wasn't a group call. It wasn't a town hall meeting. It was a direct transmission wired into your DNA. It's yours. It's tailor-made. And that's why they don't get it. They're not supposed to. They weren't invited into the conversation between you and your purpose. You keep trying to make people believe in something they can't see. But vision doesn't come with proof. It comes with faith. And faith looks like foolishness to the blind. You're sitting at the table trying to describe color to the colorblind. And when they stare at you blankly, you shrink. You question yourself. You water it down. But let me tell you, if they could see what you see, it wouldn't be a vision, it'd be a memory. You are seeing forward, they are stuck in now. They only understand what's been done, not what's never existed. You don't owe anyone an explanation for a fire they didn't start. Stop trying to convince people that your dream is worth it. If they need convincing, they already don't qualify to witness the outcome. Visionaries always look like liars in the early chapters. They called dreamers delusional, called believers naive, called builders crazy. But the same mouths that mocked you will later mimic you. The same eyes that rolled at your idea will widen in shock when it becomes undeniable. You've been asking the wrong audience to clap. Applause means nothing if it comes from people who can't even hear the music you're dancing to. Let them stare confused, let them call it unrealistic, because what's unrealistic to them is just unfamiliar. You've been an alien in a world of settlers, trying to explain flight to people still building rafts. They want logic, but you've got calling. They want evidence, but you've got essence. They want to know how, but you're fueled by why. That's the difference. You were never meant to make sense to them. You weren't born to be understood. You were born to be undeniable. Stop apologizing for your ambition. Stop dimming your fire so they feel comfortable in their shadows. You are not a translation. You are not a summary. You are not a simplified version of your own potential for their comfort. You are disruption in human form. You are a plot twist. You are divine chaos wrapped in clarity. And they won't get it until it's too late. You have to stop asking for permission from people who've never left the ground. They haven't walked your road. They haven't bled for your breakthrough. They haven't cried in the silence you're growing in. So why are you giving them authority over your next move? They weren't there in the dark. They weren't there when you doubted everything and still chose to believe. So they don't get to be there when the light breaks. That's sacred ground. That's reserved for the battle-cester, not the curious. They won't understand what they've never had to carry. Vision is a burden and a blessing. It isolates you before it elevates you. You'll lose people. You'll confuse people. You'll even offend people. But you don't owe them an explanation. You owe yourself the courage to keep building even when the blueprint only exists in your heart. That's the truth most won't tell you. Vision comes with isolation. But isolation sharpens clarity. And clarity births greatness. When they don't understand, don't argue. Build. When they question, don't defend. Deliver. Let your progress become the proof. Let your legacy be the loudest response. People don't understand what they're not brave enough to chase. And most people aren't brave. They're safe. They're predictable. They're silent. But you're chosen. You're dangerous. You're carrying something that was never meant to be understood. It was meant to be realized. Stop explaining. Stop waiting for their green light. You already got the signal. It's beating inside your chest. It's screaming from your bones. It's pulling you forward. That's the call. That's the mission. That's the truth. They don't need to understand. They just need to watch. Explaining invites doubt, not support. The moment you speak your vision out loud, it becomes a target. You think you're sharing it to inspire them, but they're loading it with their fear, their limits, their disbelief. You say, I'm starting something big, and they respond with silence soaked in skepticism. You say, I know this will work. And they respond with statistics, stories of failure, a list of reasons why you'll fall flat. You walked in with fire and you left with ashes because their doubt disguised itself as advice and killed your momentum. They won't see your idea for what it is. They'll see it through the lens of what they couldn't do. Their filters are made of fear, failure, and small thinking, so when you speak, they don't hear your hunger, they hear your threat. Your courage exposes their comfort. Your ambition rattles their routine. They don't want you to succeed because if you do, it proves they could have too, and that burns worse than any rejection. You expect applause, but get avoidance. You expect encouragement, but get corrections. You expect fire, but they hand you cold logic soaked in excuses. You were just looking for someone to say, go for it, and instead you got, be careful. But caution has never built empires. Safety has never started revolutions. You came to share your dream, and they turned it into a debate. That's not support. That's sabotage wearing a smile. When you open your mouth, you give them an invitation to insert doubt. And trust me, people will RSVP faster to doubt than they ever will to belief. Doubt gives them power over you. It puts them in a position to influence your momentum without ever lifting a finger. And some of them enjoy that control more than they'll ever admit. They don't want you to fall, but they sure as hell don't want you to rise too high. The truth is, most people can't support what they don't understand. They need it to be proven before they believe in it. But by the time it's proven, you don't need their belief. That's the irony. They never support you when you're climbing. They only celebrate when you've already made it. But the climb, that lonely part in the middle where it's all risk and no recognition, that's where you must learn to walk alone, steep talking and start doing. Silence is your shield. Results are your revenge. Protect your dream like it's sacred, because it is. You don't need another opinion. You don't need their reassurance. What you need is the discipline to protect your belief from their doubt. You're not building for their approval. You're building so big that even their doubt will have to admit it was wrong. Permission is a trap. It feels like love, but it's control. It feels like support, but it's dependency. The moment you start chasing approval, you surrender your voice to the crowd. And the crowd, it's fickle. One day they cheer you on, the next they question your worth. You can't build anything solid on applause, because applause is temporary. One wrong move and it vanishes. One bold step and they turn their backs. The people who once praised you will watch you fall with curiosity, not concern. You were not born to please them. You were born to push limits, not bow to them. Every time you ask, do you think I'm good enough? You're handing over the steering wheel to people who've never even started their engine. You think you're playing it smart, seeking opinions, gathering feedback. But what you're really doing is asking permission to be great. And greatness doesn't ask, greatness declares. The problem is, when you build for validation, you build weak. You create with fear instead of fire. You make moves based on what they'll clap for instead of what sets your soul on fire. And that kind of life, that's a prison made of applause. You can't breathe there. You can't grow there. You can only shrink into whatever version of yourself they find comfortable. The most dangerous addiction in the world isn't drugs or fame or money. It's validation, because it disguises itself as connection, but underneath it's manipulation. You keep bending, changing, editing yourself to fit their expectations, and with every change, you disappear a little more, until one day you look in the mirror and don't recognize the face staring back. You traded your essence for acceptance. You sold your soul for a seat at their table. You think their approval will give you confidence, but it only gives you temporary relief, because now you're trapped in a loop, constantly needing more, constantly fearing rejection. You stop creating from truth and start performing for praise. You stop leading and start pandering. And once you've tasted that kind of validation, it poisons your purpose. It numbs your instincts. It silences your intuition. You were not made to be liked. You were made to be real. And realness threatens those addicted to the fake. That's why they push back when you step out. That's why they go silent when you shine. You don't need them to clap. You need to believe. There is a fleeing inhuman to be liked and accepted. You like people who love you. Take care of your family and take care of yourself. Carry your suntan, you stop living for their reaction and start living for your own revolution. That's when power is born. That's when the game changes. And that's when they finally pay attention, not because you begged for it, but because you never needed it in the first place. Silence protects momentum. Movement in quiet builds force. The world teaches you to announce every step, post every goal, document every intention, but every word you share becomes a door for resistance to enter. You don't owe them MDPs, best instructors. Never. There is no judgment. There is no censor. There is no censor. Stop putting You're not obligated to broadcast a process they don't respect. The louder you are, the easier you are to stop. When they know your every move, they begin to interfere. Doubt creeps in through their questions, comparison grows through their reactions. Opinions, expectations, criticisms. Each one chips away at your clarity. Silence is not about secrecy, it's about strategy. It's the shield that keeps your vision from getting diluted by the world's need for explanation. You don't need to prove anything, yet the process is still forming, it's still sacred. In silence, you hear yourself again. You reconnect with the reason you started. You aren't swayed by likes or comments. You're not distracted by approval or rejection. The only voice that matters is the one that echoes inside your chest. And when that voice is clear, you become dangerous. Because now you're building with intention, not attention. You're not chasing trends, you're carving legacies. You're not asking, what do they want? You're asking, what was I born to create? Silence is where power sharpens. It's where giants are built. No one hears the seed breaking under the soil, but that's where all life begins. Growth doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg for applause. It simply rises, quietly, relentlessly. When you move in silence, you cut off their access to your progress, and when they can't track you, they can't attack you. They can't slow you, they can't shape your pace. You're in control. You're untouchable. Let them wonder, let them guess, let them underestimate what they can't see. Because while they're distracted by noise, you're becoming undeniable. While they're scrolling, you're sculpting. While they're talking, you're transforming. Real work doesn't scream, it doesn't beg for attention. It commands it after it's complete. Silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening, and none of it needs validation. They want you loud because loud makes you predictable, loud makes you accessible, but when you disappear into your grind, you become something they can't calculate. That makes you dangerous, that makes you powerful. That makes you unstoppable. The most lethal moves are always made in the shadows. The most brilliant creations always begin where no one is watching. Because genius doesn't perform, it prepares. So don't speak, don't post, don't explain. Work, build, evolve. Let them wonder where you went. Let them ask what you're doing. Let them question your silence. Because soon your results will be louder than anything you could have ever said. And by the time they see it, it'll be too late for them to stop it. Let results speak louder than promises. Promises are easy to make, they cost nothing, they feel good in the moment, they impress people short term. But results, they shut down arguments, they silence doubters. They leave no room for debate. You don't have to explain when the evidence is undeniable. You don't need to convince anyone of your potential when your reality proves your power. Talk fades, proof lasts, and those who spend their time speaking rarely find time to execute. Every time you announce what you're going to do, you release pressure before you've earned it. You get a hit of validation before you've earned the win. That fake high tricks your brain into thinking the work is already done. And that's the trap. You perform for approval, and in the process, you rob your future of focus. You were born to finish, not to flaunt. Every word you waste on promises is energy stolen from execution. They don't need to hear what you plan. They need to see what you've done. Because talk doesn't leave legacy, results do. You don't go down in history for what you meant to do. You go down for what you delivered. Vision is invisible until it's done. People don't believe in dreams, they believe in outcomes. So stop feeding them your intentions, feed them your transformation. The loudest people in the room are often the ones doing the least. They talk to fill the silence of their inaction. They advertise every step because they know deep down they're not moving. But you're different. You're about progress, not performance. You're about evidence, not ego. You don't need to convince the world anymore. You need to conquer it. And conquering doesn't need commentary, it needs commitment. You don't need to say, watch me. Just make it impossible to ignore you. Because once the results show up, they'll do all the talking. They'll walk into every room before you do. They'll echo through your silence louder than any speech. And the same people who questioned your vision will now quote your strategy. That's how power shifts, not through promises, but through proof. Every step you take in silence builds the pressure behind the scenes. And when that dam breaks, they won't be ready. Your results will flood everything they ever believed about you. And you won't have to say a single word. You won't have to defend yourself. You won't have to clap back. The work will do it for you. The transformation will scream in their faces. And they'll know, without warning, without permission. So hold the line. Build in silence. Execute in private. Let your success be the explosion that no one saw coming, because promises are just echoes. But results are earthquakes. They break the ground they stand on. They change the conversation. They end the doubt. And in a world full of noise, real results are the only thing that can't be ignored. Power grows in the shadows, not the spotlight. The spotlight is seductive. It promises recognition, applause, admiration. But it's also where pressure multiplies and critics sharpen their knives. In the spotlight, every move is magnified, every flaw exposed. People don't watch to celebrate, they watch to dissect. But in the shadow, something else happens. In the dark, you are untouchable. You are unbothered. You are building without permission, without interruption. That's where true power is born. You don't find strength in being seen. You find it in becoming. And becoming is messy. It's unseen. It's silent nights. It's long hours with no audience. It's failures behind closed doors that teach you more than success ever could. Power is built where nobody claps, where nobody watches, where you show up without applause. Because if you can build when no one's watching, you'll dominate when they finally do. The spotlight is a mirror, not a multiplier. It reflects what already exists. If you walk into it without foundation, it doesn't elevate you, it exposes your lack. But if you've trained in the dark, if you've grown in silence, the spotlight simply reveals what can no longer be hidden. You don't need to rush to be seen. That hunger for visibility is how people sabotage their own growth. They confuse attention with ascension. But the truly powerful, they don't chase the stage. They become the reason it exists. What they don't tell you is that the spotlight is not the goal, it's the test. It's what determines if the shadow work was real, if your confidence is rehearsed or rooted, if your strength was built from within or borrowed from approval. That's why rushing to be seen will cost you everything you haven't yet earned. The spotlight will break the ones who skip the shadows, but it crowns the ones who conquered them. The world wants you to show your process, to document your journey, to share every step. But some things grow best in silence. Some breakthroughs require isolation. Not everything should be shared. Not everything deserves an audience. Growth needs protection. Momentum needs mystery. And the more people see, the more they expect, the more they pull at your focus. But in the shadows, there's peace. There's ownership. There's space to evolve without distraction. You weren't meant to peak under pressure from a crowd. You were meant to build in quiet until your existence changes the volume of every room you enter, until your presence alone speaks what words never could, until you walk into the light not as someone hoping to be seen, but as someone impossible to ignore. That doesn't happen from exposure. That happens from endurance, from staying hidden long enough to master the thing no one knew you were carrying. Power that's rushed is fragile. Power that's built slowly is unshakable. In the shadows, you make mistakes without judgment. You stretch beyond limits without fear of ridicule. You try, you fail, you rise, and no one but you knows what it took. That process doesn't need an audience. It needs your full presence. And when you give yourself fully to it, you create something no one can replicate. Something real, something earned. Don't let the world trick you into thinking visibility is value. Being seen isn't the win. Being solid is. And that happens when no one's around to cheer you on.